formal now that we're recording these sessions. But today is session number 167. Hey! As always, I expected a round of applause. Okay, great, guys. Let's get right into it. Okay, so our guest speaker today is Charles Kovess. And Charles, we've had him speak to us a number of times. And Charles graces us with his presence in almost every Zoom talk that we do, understanding that it's very late at night in Melbourne, correct, Charles? In Australia. Early for us, but late for him. And tonight he's going to do a talk for us. The title of the talk is Understanding the 12 Battlefronts of this Third World War in which we now find ourselves and what to do about it. Took me about an hour to remember the title. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown, the short bio of Charles. It's quite an achiever. So Charles practiced tax law for 20 years, then successfully changed career in 1993 to become Australasia's passion provocateur, as you can see with the red jacket. For the past 31 years, he has provided services as a professional speaker, facilitator, executive coach, and author. He helps men and women and both small and large organizations to unleash passion to achieve world-class results and enjoy life at the same time whilst handling challenging situations. He knows the pathway to discover passion and why it's the game changer in most people's lives. He firmly believes the adage, nothing great was ever achieved without passion. He earned the international distinction of Certified Speaking Professional, the highest level of speaking qualification. Charles was national president of Professional Speakers Australia. Over the past 14 years, Charles has been given strategic advice on legal issues concerning harm to children from vaccines in Australia. When COVID arrived in March 2020, he recognized the game that was actually being played by big pharmaceutical companies and the globalist agenda behind those companies. Charles has been heavily involved in various global groups and legal cases over the past 4 years, fighting against government overreach and unlawful attacks on human rights and freedoms. On another note, since 2012, as CEO of Textile and Composite Industries, he has led the commercialization of the world's best industrial hemp processing machine, the D8 Decorticator. Just love the name, Charles. Wow. To contribute to the global expansion of hemp, Charles is also the president of Australia's peak industrial body for industrial hemp, the Australian Industrial Hemp Alliance, and now is an executive board member of the Federation of International Hemp Organizations. Charles is also the author of 2 books, Passionate People Produce and Passionate Performance. He is the chairman of the Australian Institute of Comedy, a board member of the Kids Foundation Limited, an innovative children's educational charity, a board member of the Australian Cartoon Museum, and president of the Australia-Hungary Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He hosts the weekly Charles Kovess Show that is now up to episode 211 on YouTube, Rumble, and podcast channels. He was the host of the weekly Mind Medicine program on TNT Radio for 31 months. His Rumble channel is I will post all the podcast links and channels of Charles in our Telegram group. We have about 178 members in our group. I'll post it and make sure that everybody gets it. So Charles is also the father of 5 children, aged from 43 down to 13 years of age. So it's fair to say that Charles is definitely a global thought leader in the fields of passion, hemp, health, law, comedy, and freedom. And so I'm going to hand it over to Charles to give us a brilliant talk today. And I'm sure an uplifting message of hope at the end, as we always look forward to. And we'll go into the Q&A after this. Okay, thank you very much, Charles. Take it away.
Thank you, Pat. What a beautiful introduction. Who wrote that? Oh, it must have been me. So thank you for reading it so brilliantly and preparing it. Wonderful to be with you again. And Pat, did you tell me that I'm talking for 2.5 hours or 3?
4, if you can manage anything. Okay, leave it up to you.
All right. So I do love Q&A, but I have prepared a presentation because I have been a professional speaker for 31 years, and I could literally, if you said to me now, speak for 8 hours. I could speak for 8 hours on the material that I have prepared, but I do like sticking to time. So it's an honor to have you here, to be with you, and I've prepared the presentation, so I will share my screen. It will help you understand what we are looking at. And Pat, I hope you can see that. Good. So
Perfect. Yep, we can see it.
beautiful. And can you see me? That's a question of how the view that
Oh,
you have.
yeah, we can see you in the top left corner, but your presentation is big on the screen. Everyone can read it, and we can
Beautiful.
see you.
And then from time to time, when I want to see you all, I will turn that off. But I will tell this story and no more than 30 minutes, 35 minutes, and then we can have plenty of time for Q&A. So today is 3 months to Christmas. How about that? 25 September 2024. Understanding the 12 battlefronts of this World War III, in which we are now in, and what to do about it. I have an honours degree in law, a master's degree in law. I'm a certified speaking professional, which is the highest qualification for professional speakers globally. And I'm also a Knight of the Order of St. John. That's not an order of Freemasonry. I'm a Christian Catholic, and I'm a Knight Commander. I live in Melbourne. What I'm talking about here is I want to help you develop a passionate mindset that eliminates your fears to make each one of you warriors for freedom, truth, justice, and health. I want to help you understand the 12 battlefronts in which we find ourselves, because this is not just a medical science battle that we've had over the last 4.5 years. I want to help you understand the human rights that you have. I want you to help gain new perspectives on fears that might stop you taking action. Then the question is, what are you going to do about it? What battlefront will you take? And what battlefront is the right one for you? And it could be that, like in a war, you can't be on all battlefronts at the same time. The general is not on 12 battlefronts, but he's coordinating, and each individual is only on one battlefront. And it might be that the role that you play is to be an enabler. You might be, in army terms, you might be working in the kitchen. You might be working in the hospital. You might be a nurse. You might be an information spreader. You might be one of the forward scouts, not physically fighting. I'm going to touch on the 7 strategies for passionate performance and to provoke you with some powerful and practical steps that you can take now. So as Patrick said, I was 20 years a business tax lawyer, 31 years as a professional speaker since I left that career in 1993. I've been a leader of business enterprises, including industrial hemp. And one of my goals is to have Thailand become a very big player in industrial hemp in global terms. And so there's some good things happening in Thailand. So, Patrick, I'll need to come to Samui to do my hemp business. For the last 13 years, I've also been doing work as a legal strategy consultant. I'm a national president of the Professional Speakers Australia in the past. I'm currently on the board of 6 not-for-profits. And I've owned an organic farm with my family since 1976. I've been successfully married 3 times. I've been a competitive triathlete for 37 years. And my medical history and my books. Well, I want to touch on my books. And as Patrick said, my first book is Passionate People Produce. That was published by Hay House. There's 4 editions of that, and people still get amazing benefit from that. And then my second book was Passionate Performance. And then, look at this, everybody. My book, Passionate Performance, was published into the Thai language and published in Thailand. So that was a big thrill when that happened. My medical history I wanted to bring to your attention. Not so much not to boast, but to inspire you. In 2 weeks' time, I will be 72 years of age. I currently work 70 hours a week. I train every day, swimming, cycling, running. I still compete in triathlons. I don't have a doctor. I've never been to hospital for poor health. I went to my first naturopath in 1965 when I was 13. And at a very early age, I remember this quite clearly in 1970, my father introduced me to the book by, I think it was Gary Allen, None Dare Call It Conspiracy. Who ever heard of that book? None Dare Call It Conspiracy. Famous, famous book. And my dad, he was a refugee from Hungary. My parents were refugees from Hungary, get away from communism. And I was born in Australia in 1952, the year of the dragon, and this year is the year of the dragon. And I am a freedom warrior because of my almost the cellular memory of coming from Central Europe, of Hungary, of what it means to fight for freedom. And that's why I became a lawyer. And I've always understood that if you're not healthy, you can hardly consider yourself to be free. So I have had a deep, deep commitment to health. And the question that I challenge you with, and most people, they say, suddenly I become unwell. No, most people take shocking care of their health. And we are in World War III. The forces of the global elite are lined up against us. And what I say to you is every single one of you can make a decision today to radically improve your health, because you need the energy, all of the energy that is available to you, to be in this fight. This is not a time to be weak, to be unwell. And what I promise you is that your health for each one of you is unique. My definition of health is that health is the unique optimal balance for each one of you of mental, physical, and spiritual elements. And you can totally rejuvenate your health in 1 to 2 years. I cannot rely on government health systems. And one of my messages to you is we need to create communities of health professionals. But the reason why I'm telling you about my health is because every cell in your body in 12 months' time is new. And what you think about your cells and the spiritual energy that you give to your cells and the physical nourishment that you give to your cells will change your physical body. But if you don't believe that's the case, then you are certainly right. As Henry Ford said, whether you believe it or you don't, you are right. I am testimony to the evidence that when you make a decision to look after yourself, you can do a radical, radical rejuvenation. Now, if you have not looked after yourself for 20 years, it will take you longer than somebody who's not looked after themselves for 3 months. So get inspired. We've got a war to win. I want you to be in the best possible shape that you can be in for this war. Back to my screen sharing. So, Pat, you can see that now?
Yes, we can see it.
So, COVID-19, 4.5 years, has been a test. We are in World War III, or some say it's an ongoing World War II. We are in a war against government overreach and the one world government agenda. And this war is represented in 12 battlefronts. And the government, the globalist elites, want one government. They want one government, one tiny group of people controlling every nation. There is currently 196 nations. So here are the 12 battlefronts in priority, A, B, and C, 4 in each. Sorry, 3 in each. No, I've got A, B, C, and D. Gosh, humble apologies. 4 categories. Firstly, legal cases. And as a lawyer, I was on Law Institute Council in Victoria, which was the peak governing body for lawyers in this state. I was on that council for 4 years. I am disgusted by the attitude of most lawyers in the West. Lawyers have sold out your human rights. Lawyers have decided that government and big business give them more money than you and me. And so they have decided to tie their interests to government and big business. It is disgusting, the attitude of lawyers to legal cases, but this is one of the core battlefronts because the law is designed to protect your human rights. Secondly, we need to harness the power of the people to fight back against governments. I say unity is strength. The global elite is no more than 1 million people. There is 8,000 million of us. When we unite, rather than having debates about whether Russia and China is good or bad, or whether we should support Ukraine or not, or whether we should support Jews or Palestinians, or whether we should fight A, B, or C, all of that is designed to have us separate, not unified, because when we unify, the elite are scared. The third battlefront is a propaganda battle. We have to get the truth to the people. And in Australia and around the world, in the last 3 years, I have moderated 450 meetings, 3 every week. Medical Doctors for COVID Ethics International is 2 each week. And then a third group that I run called FOAM, FOAM, that stands for Fighters Opposing Autocratic Maniacs. We have to get the truth out. And it's my sense in Australia that 30% of people are on our side. Of you in this room in Samui, of you on this call, 30%. 30% are absolutely wedded to the agenda. And my sense is that there's 40% of the population who will sway one way or the other towards freedom and justice or towards totalitarianism. Our job is to speak up. The next category of the next 3 battlefronts are we need to influence existing parties and governments. We need to create new political parties, and we need to design successful election strategies. And we are in the middle of a spiritual battle of good versus evil, light versus dark, freedom versus slavery. And one of the great tragedies I see is that I don't know what it's like in Thailand, maybe some of you can share this with us. In Australia, UK, Canada, America, I don't think in Hungary, but maybe I'm wrong. I speak fluent Hungarian. But when surveys are taken about what people would choose between freedom and security, a significant majority of people choose security. To me, that's anathema. Why would you give away your freedom for security? I can give you security. I go and commit a crime, I'll put you in jail. You've got security, but you've lost your freedom. And I look at what it is. I'm going to show you a slide in a moment, but this question of freedom is one of your spiritual elements. Freedom is what makes you human. We are in the midst of this spiritual battle. And my challenge to each one of you is, God, at a spiritual level, almost God, how are you going to fight in that spiritual realm? The next 3 is the scientific medical debate about COVID, about monkeypox, actually it's called moneypox, as you know. It's got a silent K in it. It's got people walking around boasting about 6, 7, 8 jabs. That's one of the 12 battlefronts. But they want us to be having debates about these viruses rather than dealing with the other 11 battlefronts that we've got here. Number 8, we need to restore the checks and balances in existing constitutional systems in whatever country you are in. We don't need to tear down existing systems. We need the proper application of law. And this is why I'm so disgusted with lawyers, because they have sold out. Our constitutions, they were centuries in the development, the Thai constitution. Alex is here from Croatia, the Hungarian constitution, the UK constitution, and the coronation oath of 1688 that still applies in the UK, that Australians still have the benefit of the inalienable rights. We want those constitutional systems properly followed. The ninth battlefront is we must oppose the New World Order agenda and the Great Reset. And one of the great books that I want to bring to your attention on this, and Pat, I really think we should try and get Michael Rectenwald, wrote a great book called The Great Reset. Michael Rectenwald. He's written a number of books. This is a wonderful book. It's available print on demand. And what's exciting, he says, what are we going to do about the Great Reset? He calls it the conclusion, we're going to do the grand refusal. The grand refusal. Where I'm headed, and he's got 9 elements in here. There's a brilliant book. He names names of, when they say, who are they? There's a chart in here of the names of all of these bastards. Look, there's the chart of all their names and the global groups that they're parts of. I know who these bastards are, who want to kill you. I say there's a depopulation agenda. That's what this is about. They want to take this whole planet. That's why it's a battle of good versus evil. But this book is a wonderful guide to deeply understand what this whole ESG movement is, environmental social governance nonsense, the whole climate emergency. This is all about literally a land grab to grab this earth, to eliminate 7 billion human beings, and to have a small group enjoying the fruits of this planet. So we must oppose, and that's the point about his book, is that he really articulates how evil this New World Order is and the Great Reset is and what to do about it. And I'm going to share those with you. They are encompassed in this presentation. The last 3, we want a proper, fair and lawful global financial system. And Alex Craner has spoken to you and wonderful other financial services, financial system experts on what that looks like. We need to oppose any social credit system. You all understand what that means. It means that if we have central bank digital currency, you will only be able to spend money when the powers that be decide that you are being a good little boy, a good little girl. And lastly, the 12th battlefront is to oppose the human augmentation agenda, the transhuman agenda, the implanting in your mind of chips to then control who you are as human. They are the 12 battlefronts. And when you see the enormity of this, the question, when you understand that, is, gosh, what do I do about it? Well, I'm going to share some thoughts with you. Many people comply because they want it to end. They want the lockdowns to end. They want the pandemics to end. It's our compliance that means this nonsense will never end. And the question to ask yourself is, do you believe everything the government tells you? Of course not. Do you believe everything the politicians say in public? Of course not. Do you believe the politicians always tell you the truth? Of course not. So how do you work out when they're lying? I mean, the classic joke is, how do you know when a politician is lying? When his lips are moving. The government and your politicians are not telling you the truth about viruses, pandemics, and climate, and finances, and. When they're not telling you the truth about monkeypox. They're not telling you the truth about, what's that horrible disease they keep talking bullshit about? The WHO is not telling you the truth. The WHO is a totally corrupt, evil organization. Tedros Ghebreyesus, evil man. If he goes back to his home country, he'll be put straight into jail for crimes against humanity in, I think it was Uganda. The real pandemic we have these days is fear. And government, your government, wherever you are, wants you to be fearful. And here's something that I find really helpful. Once you understand that confusion is their strategy, you will no longer be confused. So you come to these meetings at Samui Real, as I do, and the speakers share an insight, and then you go, I'm confused. I'm not smart enough to understand it. No. The point is government wants you to be confused because here's a principle that I've taught for 31 years in all of the presentations that I do. Clarity leads to power. When you are clear, you are incredibly powerful. But confusion kills passion. The game plan of government is to confuse you. When you understand that, you will no longer be confused. You will take back your power. And that's my wish for each one of you, to come, and you come to these meetings and you are reminded about your incredible capability as a human being. And if anything's confusing you, you can truly say, no, that's their deliberate confusion. They're paying people to confuse me. I'm not confused. Here's my path. I'm clear. And because I'm clear, I have enormous power. And I'm going to help you clarify that path for you tonight. So what I say is that you are a human being. You have a powerful spirit inside you. Passion comes from your spirit. You do not have to make your decisions driven by your fears. It's government that's encouraged you to become fearful. I say break free. Claim your power as a free human. Do not comply. That's the mantra. Do not comply. That's the overwhelming mantra of Michael's book. Do not comply. That's my message for the last 4 years. Do not comply. And of course, there's a risk in not complying. Bobby Kennedy, he has presented to us at Medical Doctors for COVID Ethics International. You need to love your freedom more than you're scared of a germ, or more than you're scared of losing money. You need to deeply understand what freedom means to you, because that clarity, when you're clear on what freedom means, that gives you enormous power. So I'm just looking, just one second. I've just got a thing in my way. I can't quite see. Just can't see the words at the top there. Can you read the first line, Pat?
The bankers will ensure we stay in debt. The pharmaceutical companies will ensure we stay sick.
The rest I can see. The weapons manufacturers will ensure we keep going to war. The media will ensure we're prevented from knowing the truth. The government will ensure all of this is done legally. Once you understand that, you understand everything. And there's a wonderful video called All Wars Are Bankers' Wars. When I look at the history that I've studied, and indeed, Pat, I will share with you this wonderful PDF that was brought to my attention, The New World Order, a book written by William Still in 1990. It beautifully articulates what's been going on for the last 3,000 years. All wars are indeed bankers' wars. I say without freedom, you are not truly human. You are free to choose to take the jab or any medical intervention. You are free to choose not to take it. And why would you allow your government to take away freedoms that your ancestors gave their lives to gain? From an Australian perspective, from a UK perspective, all the wars, from an American perspective, all the wars countries or soldiers have gone to have all been about freedom. Apartheid in South Africa was an abomination. Nelson Mandela fought it all his life for ultimate success because apartheid destroys freedom. Why would you comply with medical apartheid, where people who choose not to be jabbed cannot have a job, or with the pandemics coming up in the future where the WHO says something and you might lose your job? Why would you destroy your health, this amazing body that you have? And I've told you, you have, see, I'm 72. I'm planning on working for another 50 years. None of this retirement stuff. We are amazingly capable, but if you put crap into your body, you will suffer the consequences. And my question is, why would you damage your health for security? I want you to think about it. Now, you then go, well, should I push back against government? I love this quote. Being a conspiracy theorist is spending endless hours for years and years gathering as much information as possible from as many resources as possible and critically thinking about what that information means and going to Samui real meetings and then having people who do nothing but watch TV tell you you're crazy. And you all know from the presentations you've had that the the term conspiracy theorist was developed in the mid-1960s as a psychological operation by the US government to attack anybody who dared to question the government narrative. Well, as I said, 1970, I had the benefit of the Gary Allen book brought to me by my dad. I was 17 at the time, first year of law school at Melbourne University, and none dare call it conspiracy. And I've been conscious of conspiratorial action by governments. And when someone says to you, you're a conspiracy theorist, I've got a series of answers, which I'll share with you if we have time. I say millions of citizens united with each other will always win against governments and politicians who wish to oppress and suppress you. Unity is strength. Claim your strength. And our challenge, Pat, and what you're doing is a wonderful thing to do. We have to learn to be united with each other, even if we have different views on different matters. So my conclusion is this is World War III. It's a fight for our freedoms. It's a fight for truth, justice, and real health. And you will have seen Bobby Kennedy's speech on the state of health in the US. You will have seen his recommended 12 steps, and I'm in support of that. There are more steps that he could take, but the problem is laid out fair and square. The amount of money that's spent by the US medical system, and they're the least healthy nation on the planet, shows you how corrupt the US system is. So this is not just a medical science disagreement that has led us to this position, even though they want to keep pushing more pandemics and viruses onto you. So what can we do? First of all, I want to just quickly run through in the Thai situation, the Australian, UK, every country situation. There's 7 layers of relevant laws. And this I just want to understand the complexity of why lawyers might not have black and white answers, because coming from the top down, we have natural law or common law or God's law. Then we have international laws and treaties and conventions. Then each country has a national constitution. Then we have national laws. Then we have state laws in Australia. We have 6 states. We have 6 sets of states in America. Every state has 50 states with 50 sets of state laws. Then there are regulations and orders and professional standards, including those applying to doctors. And then we have contractual law. And with many doctors, one of the reasons why they get into trouble with their medical boards is because their application for hello, Drago, good to see you there from Serbia. My mother was born, she's Hungarian, but she was born in Novi Sad in the north of Serbia. That used to be part of Hungary for many years. So medical doctors get into trouble because they sign a contract each year. They say, I'm applying for a renewal of my medical license. And in the fine print, and I want you to bring this to the attention of any doctors you know, in the fine print says, and I agree to be bound by the rules and the regulations of the medical board. All right? Totally contrary to the Nuremberg Code, totally contrary to all of their Hippocratic oath, all of their some of their education as doctors. They agree each year to be bound by these corrupt medical boards that are funded by big pharmaceutical companies. That's the 7th layer of the laws that apply. And that's why I'm mentioning these contractual laws. They influence how people can behave. This is complex. The interrelationships are complex. If most politicians are scared to say what a man is, what a woman is, I'll tell you what, a man is a human with a penis, a woman is a human without a penis. There you are. That's as simple as it gets. But no, our chief officers all around the world, they can't decide what a man or a woman is. Well, you look at the complex words used in laws, and then that gives great carte blanche for judges to do whatever they like, because they can make words mean whatever they do. It's like the what's that fairy tale, the rabbit going down. Anyway, we'll think about it. But the laws are complex. The human body is complex. Which one is it, Pat?
Is that Alice in Wonderland, you mean?
Thank you. Alice in Wonderland. Yeah. Well, what do these words mean? Well, whatever you want them to mean. That's what's happening. And so our certainty, they're constantly working to confuse you so you don't know the meaning of words. So you've got these complex laws, incredibly complex words, and then we just give up. No, the message is never give up. So your body is complicated, and my proposition to you is that there are 8.2 billion human beings on the planet. Each one of us has got a unique body. Isn't that an exciting idea? What's good for you is not good for me, and vice versa. So black and white, clear and simple answers are often hard to find. So just let go of your need. You don't need black and white, simple answers. So I've got one page. We're getting close, Pat. Don't worry. We're doing good, well. So here's some practical steps. So you then go, well, what am I going to do? And as you're thinking about these possibilities, I'll just run through these quickly. Just as I've got 35 of these different actions that you can take. But from these 12 battlefronts, you then go, what sort of person am I? What am I passionate about? What's the self-awareness journey? Who am I? What am I best suited for? So here's some practical steps to take. From listening to me tonight, here's 10 suggestions. Invest time, energy, and money into learning what you need to learn, just like you're here tonight investing your time and energy and money. Help your friends to share their stories with networks and local politicians, friends who have been damaged by what's been done over the last 4.5 years. Build communities of people generally to support those who need support. And I urge you to mentally and spiritually be ready for an attack on the system so that you don't have electricity, you don't have food supply. And so Samui Real, your community, Pat, that you've built here becomes part of a network community, and be ready for a breakdown of the system so that you've got a community, and a community of 50 people can solve amazing problems. Build communities of health professionals. So there are wonderful people, not necessarily doctors, who can help people who need help for their health. Build those communities. Share stories of adverse events that you know about with your local politicians. We need to point out to these politicians because they're just human beings. They need to hear of people who've been harmed by what's been done. I urge you to practice acts of civil disobedience and non-cooperation, and like Nelson Mandela, be willing to suffer for the consequences. Now, that doesn't mean you admit your guilt. No, you practice these acts of civil disobedience, and then if they come chasing you, you go and hide. Don't make yourself a victim. But if you get caught and you have to go to jail, like Rainer Fulmich, a lawyer, German US lawyer, who I'm sure you've heard about, who's had almost 12 months in jail, criminally kidnapped by the Mexican and German governments in collusion, undergoing a show trial in Germany because of his willingness to fight for your freedom and my freedom. We must be willing to suffer. If you're not willing to suffer, you will never increase your capability. I urge you to attend public demonstrations and show your opposition to what government's doing. Deliver education pamphlets to letterboxes. Wherever you live, deliver messages, physical messages, not electronic. In fact, tonight, before I came on this call, Pat, I was moderating a call for 800 people on a new initiative to send 2 million leaflets into 2 million letterboxes in Australia. And there's only 6 million homes in Australia. 2 million leaflets, physical leaflets. Talk to people, give them, print out messages. Then if all you've got is money, well, donate and ask your friends to donate. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of people with money. People will give money if you are clear. Clarity leads to power. If you haven't got money, get clear on what you want and ask people who have got money to support our fight for freedom, truth, justice, and health. And David Rogers Webb wrote a wonderful book called The Great Taking, which shows that just because you've got money doesn't mean you are exempt from losing everything, just like middle to lower class, like most of us. There are only a small group in the elites who are designed to be protected. And then lastly, help to prepare personal videos of your friends or patients, because there will be a day of reckoning. We need to tell the story of those who have suffered. So what I'm saying, I've got another 25 possibilities. I'm giving you these to provoke you to think, in these 12 battlefronts, what am I good at doing? What's my great skill? In my work on my website, you can find out these 7 strategies for passionate performance in your life. I talk about these 7 strategies in my books. These seven strategies work. They also work. There's 7 different strategies for passionate performance in your organization. If any of you would like those 7 strategies, I'm happy to email them to you. I'll show you my website in a moment. And so here is, before we go to Q&A, here's a summary, of this big question. What can you do to fight for freedom, truth, and justice? Well, number 1, decide to take action. And by the way, just in terms of if you want to send me an email, and I can send you those 7 strategies for passionate performance, it's charles@kovess.com. Interestingly, the word Kovess in Hungarian means follow me. How interesting that I'm doing this work as a freedom warrior, and my name means follow me. So here's the summary. Decide to take action. Don't just come to Samui Real and listen. Secondly, speak the truth to family and friends. Be willing to lose family and friends. I've lost a lot of family and friends, but I've made some wonderful new friends, including Pat, including Alex Craner, including a whole bunch of people all around the world. And these friendships are built on true values, real values, joined together by the fight for freedom, truth, justice, ethics, health. Number 3, don't be fearful. Access your passion. And Pat, I just want to point out that passion comes from your soul.
Yeah.
Fear comes from your mind. And we have this, we live on the spectrum between fear and its opposite, which is love. And passion comes from your soul, which is where love comes from. So this is where we live. Are you coming from love, from your soul, or fear from your mind? And here's my proposition. When you are passionate, fear does not rule your decision-making. You access courage. Indeed, the etymology of the word courage is from the French word cœur, from the Latin cor, meaning heart. When you access your heart space, that's what we mean by courage. If you had no fear, there's no need for courage. Number 4, choose freedom warrior groups to join, like this one. I'm in a number of freedom warrior groups. Number 5, donate to legal funds. Legal funds is one of the core battlefronts. Help people find a place where, because, just in Australia, my vision for the fight that we're in is in Australia to have 1 million people putting in $10 a week, so that we've got a legal fund of $10 million a week, $500 million a year to fight the fight that needs to be fought. Number 6, distribute leaflets into letterboxes. Number 7, subscribe to news from websites of organisations that are fighting government overreach. 7 very practical things that you can do, each one of which will impact on these 12 battle fronts. So where that takes us to is the land of questions, Pat, and thus endeth and 45 minutes. How's that? Is that all right?
Thank you so much, Charles. Big hand for Charles Kovess. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Super inspiring. Can you see me okay?
Yep.
Here I am. Okay, great. Sorry, I got the glasses on now. So you touched on a number of excellent points there. I mean, community, a lot of things that you touched on obviously resonate with a lot of people in the bunker and watching on Zoom. So because I think we have time. Is it okay if anybody has a statement? They can maybe this time I will allow a statement. I love
statements.
Anyway, yeah. Even when I ask just for questions, I often get statements anyway. So shoot those hands up if you have any questions or statements. Yeah. Tom? Okay. First one is Tom. Hold on the mic.
Hello, Charles. Thank you. That was a great presentation. Thank you. One point that you mentioned was about the Great Taking by David Rogers Webb, and I've looked into that quite closely, and I'm a big subscriber to the ability of that to happen as an event. I'd just like to ask, and just to clarify, the event that we're talking about is effectively a major collapse of the financial system. do you think that, can you put a probability on what you think that might be over the next, say, 2 years?
Thank you, Tom. Great question. Thank you for your kind comment on my presentation, and I am grateful. I'm grateful that all of you did listen. You know, it'd be shocking being a speaker if no one could be bothered listening. It is my considered view that, you know, we are so built on a deck of cards, and I'm totally open to the system falling down, but I'm also open to the thought that these guys, this global elite can make stuff drag out for a long time, because I finished my law degree in 1973. I've been hearing financial collapse coming for a long time, and it hasn't. You know, it's sort of going to happen. The GFC of 2008. You know, the year 2000 collapse, the 2001 .com collapse, and then 1987, the Black Friday. So I've been through a number of them, and none of them look like dramatically debilitating. But what David Rogers-Webb showed me was how everything's been digitized. So when all those collapses happened, people had physical share certificates. People had physical certificates of title of land. And in Australia now, all land titles are all digital. Physical titles mean nothing anymore. And so the ability to cause that collapse is greater. Is my view in the next 2 years. You know, my prediction is that we are 4.5 years into a 7-year war. My prediction is we're going to go through much worse times. There are a lot of people very comfortable, and the 40% in the middle, you know, God has mysterious ways. We are in a spiritual war, and I think we've got to go through some pretty big trauma to get that 40% to come over to our side of those fighting for freedom and truth and justice. So on a significant balance of probability, I think in the next 2 years it will happen. And then it begs the question, what do you do about it? And I say mentally and spiritually gear up for it. And where that leads to, Tom, in my thinking is, and this is why health is so important, because every one of you in the bunker, it's my contention that if you lost everything but your health and your family and your friends, you would rebuild whatever you've got. Not many of you inherited a lot of money, and every one of you is more capable today than you were 10 years ago. When I graduated from law school, I was 21 years of age. I had no assets. I built up my assets, I lost them. I built them up, I lost them. As I said, I've been successfully married 3 times. I've given away 2 houses. Next time I find a woman I hate and give her a house. No, I'm happily married for the 3rd time. But, you know, once you get out of that fearful mindset, it's really saying, I've got a great quote I want to share with you. It's really saying, I'm ready for anything. And that's how I sit. And let me read this quote to you by a guy called Sebastian Junger from this great book. Tim Ferriss has put together some, I think, 200 geniuses, Tools of Titans, it's called. It's wonderful. Some of the chapters are 3 pages long, others are 6 pages long. But this Sebastian Junger, they're all interesting people. And the question is this: how do you become a man or a woman in a world that doesn't require courage? And he talks about the upside of disaster. And you look at how most of us, we've had incredibly comfortable lives, most people, certainly in the West. And he says, if you don't go through difficulty, how do you ever get good at, how do you ever get strong? And so that's how I live my life. I'm any moment ready to understand that all of it could be taken away from us. And the spiritual information that I've had from many gurus is be ready mentally, physically, spiritually. And that's part of my message to you. So, Tom, and if the worst happens, if it doesn't happen, fantastic. You'll have a magnificent life anyway, because you won't be spending money on hospitals. Next question.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Charles. Thanks, Tom. Charles, just by the way, on the walls in the bunker, we have a number of these core flute boards, and one of them is called Adapting to Change, Preparedness on All Levels, and it has mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, and physically. So it just again echoes what you're saying to us, which is awesome. Okay, I'm gonna jump into
And
another
Pat, just on that point, I'd like to come and do a presentation. Maybe when I come to Thailand in March next year, but maybe before then, I genuinely do a presentation. I want to shock you all. I want to do a presentation on the importance and value of having a great sex life and how to do that. Because your health is crucially linked to the quality of your sex life. And not enough people talk about it. And I think that's a deliberate conspiracy by the health systems.
I think you're right. And judging by all the groaning, grunting, and all the feedback we just got from the room as you said that, I'd say you're very right. And we look forward to you coming, by the way. Anytime you like, we're here. Okay, so can I go Ido first? Is that okay? Andy?
Thank you, first of all. Really wonderful presentation, and especially when it's so practical and suggests ways of action. I would add that in 2020, 2021, I was desperately trying to tell people, I mean, almost all the points actually that you have mentioned, but I wasn't very successful. And even today, people cannot reply. I mean, they know almost everything that I'm telling them or showing them, but the more they're into it, the more difficult it is for them to wake up. So they prefer not to do anything, especially the intellectual creative circle, because they're not spiritual. And this is, as you said, a spiritual wall. So, we are, you may say, light warriors in that sense. Being practical is the key. And I would like to suggest one thing that you already are doing. You have an organic farm, you said. My own focus is to help people build their own sustainable life, because, the global elite with the dark forces behind them may succeed, but may not succeed. But if they will succeed, then we this is going to be a dystopic world. And then what can we do? So the answer might be living in communities with organic farming, with self-energy, biomass, and solar energy, even though they're blocking the sun. And a communication with wires or different frequencies of communications. And those are the main, and money, of course, which can be Bitcoin or any other means of money, which is, like autarkic exchanging, not using money. So that's what I'm doing. Actually, I'm building on, and this might be one of the things that you may suggest, or you probably are suggesting it.
Yes, I precisely suggest that. And on the last point on money, barter systems are the solution. Because if you build a community, and in Victoria, 100 kilometres from my home in Melbourne, I have helped to establish a community of 200 families, and they have got a recording system going on, and 200 families can solve a lot of problems. When you look back at World War II, my father encouraged us to buy the farm that we did in 1976 because he saw from his own experience. He was born in 1923, so he was 20 years old in 1943 in the heart of World War II. And he saw that people on the land always did better than those who were not. And so consistent with what you've been sharing there, I say find communities so that you have the ability to move out of the cities. And so, the bunker, the group there, get ready now to be able to communicate without the internet. We need to be able to do that. It might be that you get to train pigeons, but certainly, I'm human. I said that what makes us human is freedom. There's one other thing that makes us human, And that's imagination. I'm a big fan of John Rappaport. I don't know if many of you have read Rappaport. He's very good. He was an investigative journalist. Imagination. And I did my Charles Kovess show this week is on that topic of imagination. We are amazing. And if you're consumed by fear, you are not. But when you embrace this world war that we are in, just like Australians who went to World War I and World War II, they went committed. You know, there's another quote in this book that said, these days when you say to people, what would you die for? Great question, isn't it? What would you die for? What would you give your life? What would you give all your assets for? What cause? And so you come to the bunker to be reignited and understand that the wolves will live, the sheep will die, and each one of us, in the conversations that we have with people, we need to get better and better and better at talking to the 40% who are on the fence, so that we don't come on too hard with them. You know, it's quite interesting. It's quite subtle how this is. And, you know, one of the rule that you would use is questioning rather than telling people you're an idiot to be jabbed, you're an idiot to rely on the financial system. You ask them questions, and each one of us can come to the bunker and get practiced at, well, what's a better way to approach a problem? What's a better way to handle an issue within our family so that we don't alienate people? Because having, you know, I'm a Catholic, I'm a Christian, but I consider love to be the answer. I consider that human beings, the interesting thing about human beings, I consider race is total bullshit. There are no races on this planet. We are one species, Homo sapiens, and every single man or woman, every single human being on this planet can literally mate with each other. So that just proves how nonsensical this idea of race is. Our unity is strength. And so, you know, that's why I do this work. And I'm, as a moderator, as a speaker, and I've worked with some of the top sporting teams in Australia. I'm constantly working, and this Saturday is the grand final in Australian rules football. I'm constantly getting buff-head footballers to be willing to express the fact that they love each other. And if you look at the people in the bunker, you say to the people in the bunker, do I love some of these people? And the great challenge of the message of love is to love people who disagree with you. And so, you know, come to the bunker and let's have more love, less war.
Absolutely.
Next question.
Well said. Thank you very much, Charles. Thank you for the question. Ido, question. Thank you for the answer. You're absolutely right. Unfortunately, there are a few in the bunker that don't like a hug, but me being me, I just like to hug everybody. Sorry, it comes from my past life tree hugging days. So yeah, wonderful. And words of wisdom, pearls and gems there. So I'm going to go over to Andy with a question.
It's more of a statement, really.
Statement.
Great speech. Absolutely agree with everything you said. I probably lived my life trying to annoy and challenge authority for the entire time. I thank my mother for that, who basically told me to. She was a school doctor, and she said, "Don't listen to those teachers. They just annoyed me all the time I was at school, and now I'm the school doctor, and they all have to kind of bow down to me, and they know that you're going to be awkward," because I was always extremely awkward. So I had a bit of a bad I had a reputation to live down to, which I thank her for. This is a bit of a plug, really, because I have been hassling Pat, and I am going to give a talk here. One of the things the world elite and the whole climate change and everything is trying to do is make people fearful. And, I've never believed in being fearful. I've believed in having objectives, heading for those objectives and ignoring the noise, because the fear and everything that the elite are trying to tell you is noise, and it's designed to distract you from your objectives. But what I'm going to talk about is a new energy technology. So I'm giving a bit of plug to that. We as human beings have been banging the rocks together for about 1 million years and using fire. This is a change in energy. It's been 35 years in the making. It's very near commercialization. It's been absolutely been, it's proven to exist now, really, if you look at the logic of it, and it's working. But what people have tried to do, and that people in the scientific community have tried to do, is undermine it, because they do not want people to have free and cheap energy that is readily available everywhere. So I am going to give a talk in the next month or so when I get my act together. I'm pretty busy. And I'm really the interesting thing about this is people need to understand what it is and get behind it, because knowing about it and encouraging it is what will enable it, and what will stop people preventing it from happening, because they definitely want to prevent it from happening. They want people to worry about climate change. Well, let me tell you, when all the ice melts, what you're going to find under there is fir trees and alligators and crocodiles and a whole load of things that were there when the earth was a lot warmer. So we don't need to worry about climate change. We've got about 150 years of data out of 6 billion years of data. So we have absolutely meaningless data, and everything we're doing, being told on that, the earth is just going to continue and we will adapt and survive. So that's really all I wanted to say. I have a message of hope that I will be delivering as soon as I get my act together. And I thank you for your speech, because I absolutely passionately believe in everything you've said. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. And I will add a postscript to it that I'm a fan of Buckminster Fuller, and Buckminster Fuller, who died in 1983, having been awarded 47 honorary doctorates. He died at the age of 86, an American, wonderful, wonderful man. There is a Buckminster Fuller Institute. He articulated the foundational difference between rich and poor countries. The foundational difference is energy, is electricity. Electricity. So you are absolutely on the right track. And there are, Andy, I'm sure you know that there are people who have had wonderful energy solutions, including Nikola Tesla, who all end up mysteriously dead. So please don't end up dead. Please share the message as quickly as possible, so that, because it's the light that's shone on, if it's kept quiet, it's easier to suppress it. The more people that know about it, Andy, you well know, I'm not teaching you to suck eggs, but that is the future, and that's why they're talking this nonsense about climate emergency, because it is energy that liberates us. So it's very exciting what you're doing. I look forward to your presentation on it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andy, for the statement, for that little talk, and thank you, Charles. I'm just going to jump over to Tones. Yep, Tones has a question for you, or a statement.
Question. Great talk, Charles. I agree that everything for what the individual should do for themselves, but in terms of persuading the wider population, I've just returned from Australia. I'm Australian, and I only encountered the 70% who are totally switched off to reality. They're in a state of fear, and they're not open, a bit like the dog, and they're not open to logic or rationality. It's like you're encountering cult members, and I don't think that can be persuaded with logic and information. And my point is, and I gave a talk about this earlier in the year, that this is a state of emotional thinking which is getting worse as time progresses. So as much as I think we all should think scientifically and logically and critically, I think the pendulum is swinging the other way, as proven by COVID. And I've been fighting this since 2007, trying to show people the facts of the climate change hoax, but very few people are open to reading scientific documentation. It's almost irrelevant. So I guess my question to you is, you think the wider population can be persuaded? You're saying there's, what, 40% that can be persuaded. Whereas
there are 40% who have not embraced the government line. That's my best guess.
They're in nowhere land. They don't really care.
Yes,
they're totally low information and unpersuadable almost, and unreachable as well, because they don't care. But what I'm saying, I guess the question is, do you think in general that segment of the population is increasing or decreasing? Do you think the problem's getting worse, or you think it's getting better?
I think the problem is getting better, save for this. I think the state of health is getting worse. Despite what we've learnt about health, the EMR problem is real, electromagnetic radiation. The 4G, the 5G tower problem is getting worse. The brain fog of most people is getting worse. The quality of the food they're eating is getting worse, despite the awareness of a lot of people. So the gift of COVID has been. See, I'm on the committee of the Australian Vaccination Risks Network. 13 years ago, as Pat read in my bio, that's when I was shown the truth around childhood vaccines. And now I didn't say it tonight because, as I said, I could have talked for 8 hours, that Stanley Plotkin, the godfather of children's vaccines, now concedes that no child vaccine ever delivered, ever invented, has ever been tested for safety and efficacy in history. And so we're pumping Australian kids today and American kids, I don't know what it's like in Thailand, 43 antigens are jabbed into them in the first 4 years of life. That has a consequence. So the brain fog is a real problem. And so our challenge in the messaging is to understand that and to come with compassion. These people really don't have the capacity to deal with the complex issues that we're raising. And so our messaging, we have to get better at our messaging. And that means using every trick in the book to create movies, songs, ways to cut through. And it's not logic and data. I'm thinking of the quote, Pat, you might remember it. When you learn something through emotion, no amount of data will shift that learning. And so most people have got, and I've been in the business for 31 years, of a pattern interrupt. We need to create the pattern interrupt. They've got like a tortoise shell of defenses. We come along and all these new ideas just bounce off. However, with the right, there are 4 ways to do a pattern interrupt. One of them is humor. Another one is joy. Another one is shock. And another one is deep sadness. And that you create this opening and bang, you can get in there. And so that's the complexity of what we're dealing with. And there was another number, and Alex Craner, when we get to him, he might have that number. I've heard the number said that if between 5 to 9% of a population unites, governments fall. And I haven't dug out, but I look at history. And it's never 50% of a population that rises up against a government. It's never that number. You don't need to get to 50%. And if we've truly got 20 to 30% in Thailand and Australia, if we unite well, we can win this without having to worry about those 40%. That's my thinking.
Wonderful. That was great question, Tones, and thank you, Charles, for that. Yeah. So this is, sorry, Annabelle, just before I get to you, this is something that, one thing I can just say for sure, an observation, is we started with 9 people. And now we've had at least 670 people. So that is just an indication of one direction it's going. Now, I'm sure there are reasons for that, but it is a good general indication, because I know people in the room, in the bunker, that I didn't approach directly, and I didn't think it was appropriate at the time to approach them. Yet it was someone else who brought someone else that brought them eventually into the group. And then I remember hearing from some people, oh, well, why didn't you tell me about this sooner? It's because you weren't ready. Obviously, the fact that I don't actually go and ask you and invite you, in my mind, not yet. But it's interesting how during COVID, people started coming around on their own, and maybe they're talking to other people. I mean, the way I see it for the group is we just throw the seeds, plant the seeds. We don't need to take responsibility for them to germinate. We don't have to water them every day. Somebody else for sure will do that. And eventually you'll get a lot of people coming around. That's sort of how I see it. Okay, can I just go one more question from the bunker, and then any on Zoom? I'll go to you. I'll go to Annabelle.
Hi, Charles. Thank you very much for that presentation. One of the slides I really liked was the one about the conspiracy theorist, you know, being called a conspiracy theorist by people who only watch television or whatever it was. I can't remember. And you mentioned that there were some strategies, thank you, strategies for what you might say if you are called a conspiracy theorist, and you thought you might share them with us. So if you have those, that would be great. And the other thing is that, you know, you do talk about speaking up and talking to family and friends, but sometimes that can actually turn people off. And there are ways in which, you know, maybe you can share some thoughts on the best ways that you can actually speak up. Thanks.
Annabelle, excellent questions. So when someone says, you're a conspiracy theorist, I say to them, so you think I'm some fucking idiot that listens to anybody mad idiot on the internet and just slavishly embraces that, do you? If I'm feeling bullish. Or I will say to them, when they accuse me of being a conspiracy theorist, I'll say to them, so you believe everything you hear and read in the mainstream media, do you? And of course they say no. So what don't you believe? And so I think one of the experiences that I've had is because and remember my number one strategy was to do the learning. Take areas in which you're interested, do the learning, come to the bunker and be confident in what you have learned. And so when I express my views, I don't get much pushback. I don't get people poo-pooing because I can argue my position. But I do understand, I have done that research on where this term conspiracy theorist came from. I say to these people, are you aware that you're using the US government term deliberately applied to people who question the government narrative? And they don't. And so that I find that to be helpful. I'll give you another example, Annabelle. What do you do when somebody says, I'm offended by what you just said? For example, for me to use the word fucking is considered to be rude. However, under the anti-discrimination laws in Australia, I've just breached the anti-discrimination laws if I don't say that word, because if that's what I want to say, but I don't use it because there are ladies present, then I'm modifying my behaviour. I'm discriminating against women who are missing out on the benefit of my fine quality of swearing. Now, similarly as with conspiracy, but the offence industry, because this is another way, this is another crucial way in which we are shut up. I have 9 standard responses for someone who says, I'm offended, Charles, by what you just said. And I urge all of you to practice those terms so that you are not on the situation where somebody says, I'm offended. I say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. I never apologize for somebody who says they're offended. But interestingly, Annabelle, I haven't had someone tell me they're offended by what I say for a long time. But these answers are very helpful in terms of standing in your power. And I said, clarity gives you power. So when you are clear that what the media is telling us is lies, and you are clear on your position about a particular point, the fact that somebody is offended is of essentially no relevance. And the 9 standard responses that I have include things like a one-word response that goes, and? Just imagine that. Someone says, I'm offended. You go, and? And you watch the person go like a fish. Another one would be, that's interesting. How do you mean? The third one is, gee, life must be difficult for you. The fourth one is, how do you do that? Okay, I'm offended. Oh, really? How do you do that? The fifth is, your offence is of no concern to me. The sixth is, I'm offended that you dare tell me that you're offended. Now we're both offended. What do you think we should do about that? Number 7, I don't give a shit, and more. So I urge all of us, linguistics are very powerful, and that's why we practice. And when you come to the bunker each Wednesday, Pat, we really need to practice that. Okay, who's come up with a great response to the issue of conspiracy theorist? Now, coming to family. You know, each family, my starting proposition, Annabelle, is that you are a weirdo. Pat is a weirdo. Alex Craner is a weirdo. Diana is a weirdo. Everyone watching this presentation is a weirdo. Not just that we're unique. And for 31 years, I've been showing the science about why each one of you watching this is a weirdo. And I want you to look at the people in the room and agree with me how weird each one is there. Now, here's the point. Not only is each one of us weird, every family is weird. And I have found that love is an extraordinary solution. And it's difficult to love. It's difficult to love when you've been rejected. It's difficult to love when you've been excluded. And one of the ways in family, you know, and Tony Robbins does a great example of how powerful love is that when we say to people in our family, I love you so much that it breaks my heart that you want to kill yourself. And the power of that honest message can change lives. Not every time, because your family's full of weirdos. And Tony Robbins gives this beautiful story of a guy who was trying to give up smoking for years. And he couldn't. And one day his 10-year-old daughter came in, tears in her eyes. And you know, he was smoking, and his dad, the father said, you know, what are you upset about? And she said, I'm upset because I'm worried that you're going to die, not be there for when I get married. And it was her sadness that was the trigger that got him to give up smoking instantaneously. So think, get out of here and into here. And what we need is this heart-to-heart connection. And you think about this term intimacy. Many women crave intimacy with men, so they say. And there's a beautiful formula, V plus V equals I. When vulnerability meets vulnerability, you get intimacy. And most of us are walking around very like knights in shining armor, where we really don't get intimate because we're not vulnerable. And so, you know, when I coach, I do a lot of executive coaching. You know, one of the ways to get vulnerable is to truly acknowledge how little each one of us knows. And the way that I describe that is, if all of the sum total of human knowledge was between my hands, the smartest person on the planet would probably know this much. And each one of us knows a tiny little slither. And one of the great books on this topic is by Anthony de Mello, called Awareness. He was an Indian guy, Jewish priest, Indian. And he said, stop walking around as if you think you know something. When you accept that you're an idiot, then all of the pretense disappears and we can be vulnerable. And that's why communities are so powerful, because each one of us knows a tiny little bit. But if we can create a space of caring, you know, the love word is scary to many, but if we can be vulnerable, we build deep communities. And so that's my answer to that, with every family that Christ in his message, and other gurus as well, Buddha and the like, that love truly is the answer.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Charles. Thank you, Annabelle. Yeah, weirdos. Just stop with the flattery, Charles. Thank you. Yeah, so when people call me a conspiracy and they say, are you a conspiracy theorist? And they accuse me of that. I mean, I sometimes just say, well, I don't accuse you of being a coincidence theorist. So what's the big deal? I mean, it happens often, but we learn to deal with it. So I'm going to go.
And we've got people on the thing, and so I'm grateful, but I've got a lovely poster here. I should send this to you. So I sometimes hold this out, Annabelle.
The real
And this is
conspiracy theorists believe that the government cares about them. The media would never mislead or lie to them, and the pharmaceutical industry that makes billions off sickness wants to cure them. Right. Thank you, Charles. Thank you. I'd love to get some of the books that you mentioned before. Later on, I can just message you on WhatsApp, The Great Reset and things like that. Thank you.
yes, yes, this and the new world order. I'll email this book to you. I've got the PDF of this.
Great.
This is very good by William Still.
Wonderful. Thank you. Can I just get if one or two more questions? If anyone on Zoom
Yes.
has a question,
Alex and Diana have got their hands up.
Diana and yep,
And
Diana,
Eric.
go ahead. Unmute.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Charles. Great talk. So many points. You know, my head was going in all sorts of directions following this and that and the other. So I've got a statement and a question. In terms of age, I'm nearly 78 and I'm still working, psychotherapist, hypnotherapist in London.
You look spectacular, sensational. Look at this 78-year-old, everybody. Woohoo!
And I travel everywhere. At the moment, I'm in Croatia. So hi, Alex. As Drago knows, I was in Syria not long ago checking out a place called Lieberland. And I don't think that will work. It's an attempt to create a free society in a tiny strip of land. They've been trying for 9 years. I don't think it's going to work. But I'm always checking places out for freedom. Now, you know, you had so much in your talk, Charles. I used to be a teacher, so I have to correct a couple of things. Tedros is from Ethiopia, and he's a wicked, vile man. And if he went back to Ethiopia, I think he'd be executed for terrorism. Antonio de Mello is an amazing Jesuit priest. Jesuit.
Did I not say Jesuit? What
Jew.
did I say?
You said Jew. You said Jew.
Oh, Jesuit. Yeah, absolutely Jesuit.
So, yeah, so was because he died. Nikola Tesla, he died in his 80s because when I was in Serbia, I went to Belgrade and if anyone goes to Belgrade, go to that museum, the Nikola Tesla Museum. It's incredible. He died in his 80s in a New York hotel. So I don't think there was any foul play.
Now, my understanding was that he had all these inventions and they were taken away from him. He lost all those, you know, that he got shafted so that he never got the commercial benefit, the commercialization of his technology. That there was a conspiracy against him. That's my understanding.
Yeah, there was a lot of chat. It was a very interesting, complex story. But the main thing is, of course, scalar technology, which he developed, which can cause earthquakes, scalar wave technology. And that's, of course, being appropriated by the CIA. So in terms of do not comply, absolutely agree. And you may know of Piers Corbyn in London, because I'm in London, and Piers Corbyn is brother of Jeremy Corbyn. And Piers Corbyn's slogan, he's very eccentric, but he's a lovely man. He's always saying, resist, defy, do not comply. That's his mantra, you know, resist, defy.
Resist, defy. That should be on the wall of the bunker. Resist, defy, do not comply. Very good. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. So, you know, there was just so much to touch on, Charles. It's, you know, we need more discussion on all these things, really. Now, I was, as you may know, because I've messaged you about this, I'm still challenging the Australian government because I want my quarantine money back. And I don't know whether to push it any further or not, or whether I can. Because I'm dual citizen. And as you know, I was there in 2020, hence I had to pay my quarantine bill at the beginning. So, you know, Australia, it's very difficult. This is coming to my question, really, which is, you know, it's all very well resist, defy, and all the rest of it, which I will do till the dying day. My spiritual background is kind of Christian Buddhist. So I would never give that up. You know, I'd die for that, for the Christianity, if you like. So, when you've got the Australian government who refused to even let people leave the country who weren't jabbed until, was it early last year or something, or late 2020? You couldn't even leave the country. And at the moment, do you know of Monica Smith?
I do. Yes, I know
you know,
personally,
she
and I know
won
her
the case. She won her case against the Victoria government about wrongful arrest and harassment. She's defended herself. She won the case, and now she's being charged is it $250,000 $250,000 in costs that she's expected to pay, having won her case. How do you deal with a government like that?
That's
and
it.
the kind of power they have?
In the same way you deal with Stalin in the late 20s and 30s. You do what you can. And,
Yeah.
you know, the question is, and because we're, you know, we're not many Australians and English believe in it, but I believe in reincarnation. And
yeah,
particularly people in Thailand believe in it, and lots of billions of people around the world believe in reincarnation.
yes, yes,
And you know, the question that comes back to is, what is
yes.
the game of life? And here's my proposition to you that I learned from Buckminster Fuller and Anthony de Mello's work also. And I certainly meant to say Jesuit. I well knew he was a Jesuit priest. Buckminster Fuller says this, and this is such a profound idea, everybody. Please embrace this. Think about this. You all have problems. Each one of you has problems. Diana, you have problems. I have problems. Everyone's got problems. And we want to solve those problems. What's your reward for solving problems? And Buckminster Fuller teaches so clearly. We think our reward for solving problems is peace and happiness and joy and satisfaction and progress. No, as a human being, your main reward for solving your problems is bigger problems. And once you let go of the idea that there's some nirvana that I'm going to solve all my problems, when you let go of that, as I said, Diana, you look fantastic. You're going to just think how good you're going to be at solving problems in 20 years' time. And if you stick at the same level of problems you've got now, you won't last to 98. And so I constantly say to myself, my reward for solving my problems, if I get my money back from the government, if I get my costs back from that case, I'll be happy. And that's the great delusion. If I solve this problem, I'll be happy. And I have learned, and I promise you I've learned this, and you teach this, I'm sure, as a psychotherapist, stop waiting for outcomes to be happy. Be happy now. Choose happy now. And we play this game of life. And if we didn't have problems, we would manifest them. As a tax lawyer, I had many business clients who, when they started business, they were in great partnerships, and they were great partnerships. They make a lot of money, and then they started fighting amongst each other. And so, you know, it was interesting how I see this manifested, and I have let go of the need to resolve my problems. And Diana, your problems are very interesting. Monica's are interesting. All of you in the bunker are interesting. So my comment is, love your problems, you deserve them. And the better you get at solving them, you're going to attract bigger problems. Diana, I can see you on the speaking circuit in 15 years' time when you're 93. You'll be waltzing around like a member of the Maya family here in Australia, Pamela Warrender, who is still on the circuit at 93, and she's talking to these people. And you know, my vision for humanity is not that they're going to depopulate us, but we're all going to live for a very long time. All right, let's get to Alex, because I've got to go to bed.
Okay.
Thank you, Diana, for the question.
Thank you.
Alex, do you have a question? To make this the last question.
Oh, look at this. Woohoo! You've spelled it incorrectly. Don't you mean to have USA there?
No, it's you just see it backward. It says it's Australia. I put it on in your honor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because I have to go out for my exercise just now. But anyway, you know, I wanted to say I greatly enjoyed this. I think I 110% agree with pretty much everything that you said. And I wanted to add something, but there is a question in the end. Because recently it came to my attention this video, which anybody can look up. If you put in YouTube, man tames lions with a slipper. Okay. And it's an amazing video. It's very short. But what you see is that this Russian man, maybe he's Ukrainian. I don't know really. But he's like a lion keeper. And he has trained these lions from the time they were cubs with this slipper, which he used it to like tap them on the nose to discipline them. And the lions became kind of accustomed to see this slipper as him disciplining them. And so in one scene, you see these big lions who are grown-ups now fighting. So it's like a really like a violent scene. And the man just walks into the cage and he takes off his slipper and raises it like this above his head. And these lions scatter instantly. So you can see that whatever's bothering them, they're worried about this slipper a lot more than they're worried about anything else. And that kind of made me think that we are a little bit like those lions, because we are afraid of the authorities, of the powers that be. We kind of think about they could do this or that to us if we disobey, if we don't comply, if we push back, they'll single us out. But I think that probably we are like those lions. We exaggerate the meaning of that slipper, and I think that that's all that the authorities have over us. And obviously here and there they'll pick up somebody to make an example, to instill fear into us. But I think that fear is not justified any more than you would be justified to be afraid to go outside because, I don't know, a flower pot might fall on your head as you walk down the street. So that's what I wanted to share. And the question for you, Charles, is completely unrelated to your presentation, but I've meant to ask you this for a long time. I know that there's some importance to the map that's behind you on the wall. And I wanted to ask you, what is that map and where one can find them?
Excellent. I will answer the question of the map. That is a Dymaxion map of the world. And before I tell you more about the Dymaxion map of the world, I will remind you, particularly Thailand, you might know this, of how elephants are kept under control, the same way as the slipper. So what they do with a baby elephant is they get a steel peg, put it into the ground, tie the baby elephant's leg with a steel cable to the peg, and the elephant for months can't pull it out, and learns once his leg is attached to the peg in the ground, can't do anything. And then in circuses all around the world, you will see elephants where there's a little peg put into the ground, huge elephant. The elephant never bothers to pull its leg out. And so that's a great reminder of that psyop that's done on all of us. And Anthony de Mello also talks about that, the psychological operation, and Buckminster Fuller as well talks about that process of training us, the slipper. Be scared of the slipper, be scared of the peg in the ground, because you can't fight against that. And Alex, I think that's a very important lesson for us all. Just because one or two people might be crucified, it doesn't mean they can crucify all of us. And when we let that fear go, why? Because we're passionate. So clarity leads to power. Then you go, no, I'm willing to face that. If that happens, that's a tiny chance that it will. So I love that story. I'll have a look at that video. I'll use it in some of my seminars. I'll give you credit for it. Now, this Dymaxion map, this is very important, everybody. That is made out of a photo from satellite. And the shape of that, here it is like this. And this is this shape because this folds into this as a dodecahedron, 20-sided polygon. This is the world's most accurate flat map of the planet. You can find it at the Buckminster Fuller Institute if you look up Dymaxion map of the world. And the point of this, taught by Buckminster Fuller, and I could really blow your socks. I've got an amazing map as to how this took years to come up with this idea. This is 99% accurate, Alex. And the alternative to that is the Mercator projection, which I will show you here to remind everybody. So here's the normal map of the world that you see. And how most people are taught is with this map. And to give you one example of the distortion compared to the reality, is that on this map, Greenland is 3 times larger than Australia, but in fact, Greenland is 1/3 the size of Australia, so it's a 9 times distortion. And Bucky Fuller was always about truth. And so this constantly reminds me of don't be swayed by bullshit.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to also return the greetings to Diana, and I would like to also prod Andy about the presentation on cheap, abundant energy. I'm dying to know, so please, if you can prepare that, I'd be very grateful.
And what about your sex life? You're not interested in that?
My sex life?
My presentation on sex life.
Oh, yes, of course. Oh, and
We're all
also,
interested
I'm
in
amazed that you're 72 years old, Charles. I didn't know that. I would have given you mid-60s tops, I swear. And if you said that you were 58, I would have believed you. And also, I never knew that you had a sense of humor, actually. But I just learned that you were part of some comedy organization.
I'm the chairman of the Australian Institute of Comedy.
Okay, so you do have a sense of humor. That's good to know.
Everybody's a comedian here, it seems. Thank you, Alex, for the.
Thank
you so much, Charles. So I'm going to wrap this up just because it's getting late. We have to let you get to bed, Charles. You're a busy man. I just want to say thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts for a wonderful presentation tonight. Very inspiring, and there's a lot to take away from that, a lot to think about. But thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for tuning in from all over the world. And Charles, you get a good night's sleep. Big hand from everybody here. You get a good night's sleep, and we'll catch up soon. Thank you so much, and good night.
Good night.